Bring the meeting to order. Will everyone please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Mona, will you take roll call?
Yes. Director Davidson?
Here.
Director Stump?
Present.
President Ratterman?
Here.
Director Dean?
Here.
And Director Dooley?
Here.
Public comment. At this time, members of the public may address the board on any non-agendized item. The public is encouraged to work through staff to place items on the agenda for board consideration. No action can be taken on matters not listed on the agenda. Comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Any public comment? There's no public here, so go on to our consent agenda. Item number 3, the following items are expected to be routine, non-controversial. Items will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member may request that any item be removed for later discussion. 3A, approval of minutes of the board meeting of December 11th, 2013. And 3B, ratify claim summary number 502, secretarial fund in the amount of $1,152,174.56 for December 2013.
Move for acceptance.
I would like to pull 3B, otherwise I'll move for accepting 3A.
Okay, we got a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda just for item 3A. We'll remove 3B for discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed 5-0. Go ahead, Bob, item
Yes,
3B.
very quickly, I had a question. I would have brought this up before the meeting, but I didn't get here in time. On page, I guess it's 7. Yeah, 7 of 7. There's a payment in the amount of $5,147.39 to the U.S. Forest Service for a special use permit. And I was curious what that special use permit was for. Does anybody know? I could check later, but
I believe we're going to get that back. I think that was an error.
okay.
But I'll double check, I'll let you know.
Yeah, I think you're right about it being getting recovered. I think it's one of those things that we pay and get back because
Right.
it was supposed to be eliminated, but wasn't eliminated, so it was easier to pay it and not just to deal with the federal bureaucracy to get it back as opposed to not paying it and then be subject to going through their process.
So it's easier to get paid back than it is to dispute a payment?
Find it, well, yeah.
That says a lot, doesn't it?
That's in that group that calls for a partial reimbursement. I don't know how much of that is going to be reimbursed, but it's not the full amount that they show there that we'll be stuck with.
All right, well, I'll move for acceptance on 3B.
Second.
So we have a motion on 3B and a second. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Passed 5-0. Item number 4 on the agenda, old business, nothing to report. Move on to item 5, new business. 5A, discussion action regarding appointment to committees and election of Joint Powers Authority. I've received from each of you, my fellow board members, your request for the committee assignments, and we have those are included in our packet. And so we need a motion. Looking for a motion on the floor here or discussion of this item.
I have a comment.
Okay.
You seem to indicate that you want to do reverse, if you keep the same 2 people, you want to reverse them.
Or make some changes is what in some areas. We didn't do that in all areas. But.
Okay, on the engineering committee, you had it listed as, this past year, as Jeff being the lead and me being the support. And then you reverse that, but isn't that just reverse of what it was? Wasn't I the lead last year?
according to this.
I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I'm not sure what we had well, let's look at last meeting.
No, here,
It's right next to it.
the two are set up right like that.
Oh, okay.
I meant to look it up.
Is there a reason for this, by the way?
I thought one of the past agendas, I was going to look, I thought it was just the opposite.
Doesn't matter, just asking. I was
No.
curious.
It's listed on your agenda, on your information there, with the 2013 listing.
No, I mean, no reason I meant to
Yeah, it's
change.
listed,
I did change
the
several of
ways.
those to.
But you didn't change that.
I
The
did,
way
I did.
we're
and
voting on
talk-
it,
Talk about it if you
But I
want
was
to.
questioning.
I don't want to push Jeff, that's,
Okay. Well, this is,
Being the lead of.
do you,
I'm happy to chair that if you want. So if you'd rather I do that, I'm happy.
we're talking about the engineering committee.
Is that
What,
what you want?
I'm not insistent, but.
I'd be happy to make any changes here, and this is a good place to discuss this, so he's agreeable to changing it, if you'd like to.
Okay, well, let's just go that way.
Okay.
Okay, we'll make a, and go ahead and describe the change you'd like to see, Dennis, and,
Well, I just have Jeff's name in front of mine, and I'll be the second in command. I'll let him run the meetings. He has more experience than I in construction.
okay? And on the legislative committee, Bob, you want to,
it doesn't matter. Do you want to flip, Jeff, or do you want to keep it the way it is?
I couldn't care less.
okay, let's flip that one as well.
All right.
Any other discussion on this item? Okay, do we need a motion on this?
I think
No,
so.
sir, you assigned these.
Okay.
So, John,
Then we've made those changes, and they'll be updated, I guess, next meeting. On this item, we also have to elect, this is 5B.
Well, I'll make a motion that we elect Director Ratterman. I don't know if anybody cares for the alternate, but for the Joint Powers Insurance Authority.
I second that.
I want to revise okay, we got a motion and a second for this, in discussion. I'd like to revise the motion slightly to include myself as the lead and Director Dean as the alternate.
Yeah.
Second it.
Okay, we got a revised motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It passed 5-0. The camera, need a motion or discussion on camera? And I had initially shown an interest in this. Director Dean, if you're interested in staying where we are on that?
I kind of like to because I'm sort of in the process of revising the bylaws, but I
Okay.
also know that I'm going to have some conflicts with other commitments that I've made, so
If you want to be, instead of me, and I'll be the alternate, that's fine too. If you'd like to be on this.
Okay. Then, does anyone have a motion in that effect? We need a motion in that effect.
yeah.
I move that Director Dean and Director Ratterman are the members and Director Stump is alternate.
And that's on camera.
Second that.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passed 5-0.
Excuse me?
Go ahead.
One thing that is really strange about camera, that it isn't normal in the rest of our JPAs, is both members are voting members. So it's not a matter of having one member there. So if one of you guys can't be there, then you have to let me know so that I can attend in your place. So we have two voting members there.
Good point.
Well, just as a matter of clarification, if this is a noticed meeting, is it legal to have 3 board members there?
I think you can have 3 board members, but one can't participate. I mean, it's just no different than any of our other committees.
Well, I'm asking a question. If it's a noticed meeting, is it legitimate and legal to have 3 board members there, of which any of them can speak?
No, sir. Director Davidson is correct with that, is that there's no problem with the 3rd person or the 4th person or the 5th board member showing up, but because it's noticed for a different entity, a different agency, the people that are not voting members should not be speaking.
Okay.
So if the 3rd,
Just asking for clarification.
if the 3rd board, even though it's noticed, the 3rd board member should not be speaking,
Okay.
because it's not noticed as a meeting of this board of directors.
Okay, we'll move on to the next,
Do you need a vote on that?
no, we already did. That one's done. We're looking at CPPA, Calaveras Public Power Agency. Current members this year for last year, 2013, was Larry Diamond, and the alternate was Dennis Dooley.
I make a motion, we retain Larry Diamond and alternate Director Dooley.
Well, I want to know, because you've expressed some interest about what staff should serve on. I like the setup the way it is. And I just wanted to know if you agree with this setup.
For the Calaveras Public Powers, I think that's a good setup. There's continuity involved, and as you can tell, Larry is not here today because he's attending the meeting, which we do have frequent conflicts, so it's probably not a good one to assign a board member to.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure, because we had a conversation
Yes, sir.
at one time that,
And I appreciate it. I'm very sensitive to the stretching the limited staff members beyond our 40 hours a week.
okay. I'll make a motion to accept
I
that.
think we have a motion. We're looking for a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion that we elect Director Stump with alternate dean for the Upper Macomb Watershed Authority.
And that'd be keeping it the same as it was last year. Any second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Both those are 5-0, Mona. Okay, back to new business, 5B, discussion action regarding fiscal year 2013-2014 mid-year budget review. Lynn Gentry, Director of Support Services.
Thank you. They're really short PowerPoint, and I'll give you copies of, I know, in case you can't see like I can't.
No popcorn?
Or cookies.
We've got 2 versions of this, one of which is Lynn talks and it gets done quickly. The other one is I talk and we're here a while.
Do we have a choice on, do we have a choice on the version, correct?
Please proceed, Lynn.
Okay. I don't remember seeing that on my PowerPoint.
That is your PowerPoint.
$1? You changed the format.
I didn't change anything other than I gave you some graphics.
Pictures.
Jazzed it up. Finance people don't jazz anything up.
They can't spell jazz.
Okay,
Is that intended to put us to sleep quickly?
shame on you. This is very exciting stuff. Okay, twice a year, we talk to the public basically about our budget, which is not to say we don't talk about our budget daily and weekly, and also publish internal reports monthly. I thought that was important for us to get across to my public. Excellent. So even though we only bring this to the forefront a couple of times a year, we are kind of looking at it on a regular basis. I certainly do anyway, that is my job. The purpose of the mid-year review is to identify variances to the budget and the impact they may have on future budgets, and to allow the board and staff to provide direction for the types of services and programs we might want to look toward in the future. And we're already starting our budget process for next year. Next month we'll start looking at what our goals are for the future. And I anticipate that they're going to be slightly different than they have been in the past 4 years. And I won't be here, so Mr. Meyer will be conducting the workshop next month. At November 30, when we actually started looking at these numbers, we had about 42% of the budget year had elapsed, and the revenue collected that was against what was projected, a little over 40%. That's a slightly low because some of our revenue streams are cyclical, like property tax revenue, standby fees. They only come in certain times of year, January and August, or January and May. So those are just a little bit low, but nothing that are significant, yes.
The actual revenue that we get from the ratepayers, is that on track?
That's on track and actually tracking a little bit higher than anticipated. There is, I guess there isn't. We projected that we're going to be pretty much on target. If you look at your schedule in your budget packet, you can see that for water sales, we were at 49% at the end of November, and the water sales were at 45%. So it's a little higher, but it generally works out to be very close to our 100% by the end of the year, after we do our approvals, reverses, et cetera. Okay, so all revenue projections are expected to be realized as budgeted, with the exception of our power revenue. Basically because it's been such a dry year, so our power revenue may be lower than expected. And honestly, I can't give you a good estimate on that right now. We may have rain.
What will occur is, because New Hogan is a run-of-the-river power plant, there's a likelihood there will be zero revenue coming off of New Hogan this year.
What is our normal revenue, or average revenue off of Hogan?
We looked at about 200,000 this year net from, well,
No.
gross from the New Hogan Power. The NCPA is a little over 600.
The NCPA is around 600,
600,000 this year.
and New Hogan averages about 60K is what I would remember
Yes.
Actual revenue.
in revenue.
Yeah, say-
In revenue.
Also, in our budget, in order to meet all of our expenditures and our obligations, we budgeted transfers. So that would be on this slide. We budgeted transfers from the expansion funds to the operations. There was a transfer from the Water Resources Reserve Fund for legal costs for this year. We expect that to be on track, and a transfer of carryover funds from a prior year for some capital outlay projects. One of them was the Clearwell, genuine Clearwell, that's pretty much finished up, and the other one is for the new radios. That is, there are no changes there. The only changes that we have booked this year are in expenditures. That'll be our next slide.
Excuse me. Hello?
Do you want to wait for me for that?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
He wasn't paying attention.
Operating expenditures were budgeted for a total of about 14.8 million this year. You can see personnel, services and supplies, capital outlay. When we looked at what we're actually spending and some of the changes that we made internally to be able to accommodate not going over expenditures, which is our next slide. what we're anticipating to the end of the year is that we may be about $78,000 to the good. And the reason for those are, the major reasons are that we will have some savings in personnel costs because the recruiting that we had anticipated for new positions has been delayed. We had budgeted for a water resources person for 10 months. That person is not yet on board, so there's some savings there. We had also budgeted for a district engineer, which we will not be filling that position this year. Instead, that we're going to go with a consultant for the balance of the year. So some of those dollars have been transferred from personnel costs over to services and supplies, and some of those costs just simply will not be incurred. The board of directors, I always look at your budget in the middle of the year to see if you've actually spent all of the stipend for meetings, and there will be about $9,000 savings there because the first half of the year being over, we know that those dollars are not going to be spent. So there was a recalculation there. And we did do a couple of transfers in water resources. We transferred $35,000 to admin to cover a couple of contracts. And we've had a couple of reductions in conservation programs. So dollars that we had anticipated to spend this year will be spent this year. So we're looking at this particular point in time, around $78,000 in savings over what was initially projected for expenditures for operating costs. So in summary, there are no significant variances to the adopted budget. And as a result, no board-approved budget adjustments will be required for this year. For the capital improvement program that was included in the operating budget for this year, not here. It was very limited. It was basically a carryover budget for water projects. We had the MS Plan Master Plan, which has been completed. The Gentleman Flood Protection Project, which, if it has not been completed, as it will be this year.
It's physically done. The completion has not been through the final process.
Right.
But the physical work is done.
But we anticipate that will be finished by the end of June. All of the payments will be made by the end of June.
Incorrect. That was a state OES funded project, and actually the state asked us to extend it because they needed a little bit more time to process our final invoices.
The other project that was carryover was the redwood tank replacement up in Evans Pass, and we do have the funding in place for that. It's been approved, but we haven't started construction on that yet. But that is anticipated to be completed as well this year. For wastewater projects, that was very limited. We were looking at a master plan update for La Contenta and a reclaim permit project for Copper Cove. Neither one of those have had any money spent against them, but we do anticipate that those dollars will be spent this year.
On that La Contenta master plan, you said this year, so that in this fiscal year that we're talking about, that's before June is when, okay.
I'm not saying it will be completed, but we do have the plans and we'll start spending money on it. I don't know exactly if we don't have a district engineer, I'm not sure if it's going to be awarding that contract and getting it finished by the end of June, but it will be in progress.
How's that gonna, how's that process gonna go for La Contenta? Are we just putting out an RFP, or are we giving any direction, or is it gonna go through any oversight at the board level, or is it just gonna be a study that's done and then we get our eyes on it?
No, I think this one is going to involve the engineering committee participating in how we go about the approach, because this really is another look-see at how we approach that master plan out there and what needs to be done. And there's some if you policy, philosophical fundamentals have to be examined again.
I agree, I appreciate that.
And Mitch, what's the timing on that?
We'll be going out to initiate the study sometime in March. I wouldn't just think we're going to have any, I mean, we need to talk about the engineering committee a couple times first, because the work will be led by an outside consultant, but we want to make sure that the consultant has the right perspective coming on board.
Okay, thank you.
If I ask a quick question for clarification,
Yes.
where the projects in FY 2013 and 14, the budgeted amounts are far less than the total cost of the project, I assume that means that the projects will be completed then in successive years beyond 2013, 14, correct? Okay, that's what they, okay, I want to mention that.
Right. And we look at cash flow as well. We look at the total cost of the project. Sometimes there have been costs incurred prior to this fiscal year. And then the CIP projects, they can go through 3 years.
Okay, so, want to make sure, thank you.
Sure. So we only spent about $415,000, about $415,000, but we anticipate that we will probably expend the entire budget for this year. Just in summary, I think that all the department heads are doing a really good job of monitoring their budgets. We've gotten pretty good at I could say estimating or projecting what our costs are going to be over the last couple of years. We're doing some zero-based budgeting, barring any disasters or major unexpected, like pipeline breaks or whatever. We're doing a really good job of keeping the costs where they should be.
Pipeline breaks are hardly becoming abnormal. It seems to be more normal and expected.
Yes, but at least we haven't had any earthquakes or floods. I guess we could use a flood right now.
Oh, what's missing up here is a piece of wood and not going.
Okay. Now, as I mentioned, we will be starting on the 14-15 budget. First up was the mid-year budget review, which we just completed, fairly painless. Next month, for the February 12 meeting, there will be a board of directors goal-setting session conducted by Mr. Meyer.
I want to lose some weight.
And after that, we'll continue with that.
It goes to the cookies.
Since I'll be leaving in March, you guys can do anything you want.
Oh, I appreciate that team player.
Thank you.
Can we call you if we need you?
No.
Thank you, Lynn.
I'll be turning in my phone.
And that was just a discussion item. 5C, discussion action regarding proposed realignment of district personnel. Mr. Dillon, General Manager.
Stacy, why don't you step up to the podium here a little bit, because I'm sure you're going to have questions. Ultimately, as we've talked over the last year, as we've looked at the organization, we have to anticipate some retirements and basically a transitioning of the workforce. So as we start to look at transitioning the workforce, we're looking to realign some positions and to realign some costs and hopefully develop a little different organizational structure that's responsive to the needs of the agency and needs of the public as we've grown to understand them. So as we look at the chart up above, it is currently the way we are currently organized. And I'm a little concerned to use this term, but we in fact are kind of flattening the organization. We are realigning a number of positions so that they report to the general manager. We're going to have a different functionality, hopefully that the professional management staff can be close to where the action is in the respective fields, whether it's customer service or whether it's field operations, meter reading, and a variety of other related services. We've got the Director of Administrative Services position, which is currently our financial planning position, to take over doing things like the budgeting, but also overseeing some administrative services, things that we haven't addressed in the past, like facilities management. and addressing our more technical services needs. Ultimately, as developer services becomes another demand, we're going to need to make sure that our front counter is becoming responsive to that again. So we have to kind of twist and turn because we perceive that those things will be changing, and so we're aligning those positions to better support. With that, we've got a couple job descriptions that were provided to you, and certainly we're open to have any questions on that. I think one of the key things I forgot to point out here was in redefining our customer relations manager, customer service, customer relations manager, it puts a new emphasis on how we hope to interact with the customer so we can address things more directly at a professional level and work through. Additionally, looking to meet our 20 by 20 goals and having our BMPs met and have accountability within the field or within the portion of the organization that responds to those customer demands. So hopefully be able to start offering water audits and other types of things that help meet customers with where they're at to achieve what they've got to get done. And that's the goal by creating that position, a little bit of a revamping of the traditional customer service mode. Certainly can answer any questions. Director Stump?
I like the concept of flattening out like this. The thing that's troubling is I've always been under the impression the span of control, you have 5 direct reports max, and we're showing 7 here.
That's very much a concern of how we can address our current needs. Part of the span of control issue is making sure that we've developed the professionals there that they can operate with general guidance as opposed to specific direction. I suspect within a year or 2 or 3, we may be looking at something different, particularly if development is moving differently and our engineering services model is moved differently. So we may be consolidating some things at that point.
The other question is, it looks like engineering is coming out of direct from utility services.
That's correct.
So they're going to be separate again rather than all underneath one?
Yeah, I think so. At a certain point, we went and we authorized the part-time funding of a district engineer this last year. We saw our way around it, didn't really need to spend quite that much. And then ultimately, we're working with retirements. And so the retirement windows really do focus how this organization will probably flatten out, migrate over the time. And so those actions are happening at the same time. It's important, I think, that we get a professional engineer on either on board or via contract to be serving as our district engineer, particularly as we start to get back into a mode where we have a lot of development submittals.
I've questioned this before, where you have same-size agencies where something like TUD has 8 engineers and we have 1 engineer and somebody else has 4, and trying to figure out what that mix should actually look like. I'm curious why they need so many, or why we don't have enough, or what is that optimal level for a district our size?
Well, it's not really related to the size of the district so much as there's lots of ways you can get that service. I mean, if you contract with 12 engineering firms, you end up with 12 different engineers, and as long as you have the accountability and the management structure to handle it. So there's ways to outsource, there's ways to manage it in-house. Depending on the needs of the community, when you want to be the collective resource for engineering, then you can do a lot of things internally. Some agencies, when a development comes in, they're provided a full set of what the district wants. The district's already done that advanced planning, that engineering, and literally the development proposal is to meet that. Other agencies, they put it all under the proposal, the advocate's shoulders to come in, and your folks are just simply doing the review.
So it's mostly philosophical in how you look at it?
Well, it's financial, and it's a matter of how much of this do you put on the backs of your existing ratepayers and how much come on through other fees and sources. And so I think there's a balance that you have to pick up as an agency as to what you're comfortable with. But personally, I feel very strongly that we need to get a professional engineer that's accountable as the district engineer, because there's some legal obligations go with that.
Bob and Dennis?
Okay. Looking through the job description of the auditor controller, I was curious to know where our investment program would be housed.
The investment program is currently housed, will be housed in the Administrative Services Group, is where the investment program, so that'll be under Jeff Meyer's group.
Okay, and it will remain there?
Yes.
Okay. And the other one was on the, okay, Community Customer Relations Manager. I noticed that they're going to be responsible for press releases and things like that. And under the abilities, I didn't see a statement regarding an ability to write. And I think that probably ought to be stated.
I think it's a very good catch. We certainly need to make sure that this person has the ability to write well.
Right, precisely.
There is a write effective informational material for a variety of public and media under abilities.
Okay, but when you go after that job, are you going to ask for writing samples?
We could.
I think that would be important.
It's a good suggestion. So all those future candidates out there that may be reading our minutes will see that writing well is an important requisite for that job.
Writing in rhyme isn't necessarily what I'm looking at either, so, but that's your problem, not mine.
I just, something kind of jumped out at me, and I don't think there's any significance to it, but I want to ask, you've got 3 positions here that do not have on the information given to us, not so obvious up there, that do not have solid lines around them, and they're shaded. You got the district engineer, HR tech, and there's one other.
Water Resource Program.
Okay.
That indicates that those are not filled positions. They're not currently filled.
Okay. I didn't understand that there was any significance to that.
Yeah, the HR tech was a position that was vacated a couple months ago, and we had redefined it, and now we're going to initiate the recruitment. Similarly, we put the Water Resources Program Manager back into the pool this fiscal year, and we hadn't filled it yet. And so ultimately, those are existing positions that just haven't been filled.
Yeah, I guess one other question I had, if you don't mind. On the facilities maintenance worker, there's a summary of the position, they mentioned landscaping, which, as you know, is near and dear to my heart. But there doesn't seem to be any qualification for having a knowledge of landscaping in the job description. And I don't know if that's just an oversight or whether it's just something that hasn't been thought through yet, or...
Not so much either, that either an oversight or something that hadn't been thought through. We have an existing person who we have, and ultimately, until we have a year or two worth of experience, we're not really quite sure that we've got the job description there, written quite right yet.
That's fine. This is an action item, yes?
Yes, sir, it is.
Any other questions or comments on this item?
I just have a comment about the auditor controller educational plan. Just as your prior government, the public agency, finance, accounting, department experience is preferred. We've had some pretty good people come from the private, locally from private. I hate to have that in there to discourage some of the local folks that might want to swap, the job they have now for something closer to home. So, but I just think it's contrary. I think we've had some really good people that come from private enterprise.
And I would agree with that. I think our preference here is that we've also done something different in that we don't have this person reporting to, say, a person like Lynn. In the old organization, we were able to have 2 levels, so as long as you had that knowledge and continuity, we were okay. I don't think that, I hope that the fact that it says preferred wouldn't be a discouragement for somebody that has really good accounting skills. We could change the wording to say, and include or experience to provide comparable experience. Soften it.
Yeah, I'd like to see it, I just,
We can do that. We can soften it.
In after education experience, there's a quote, or, well, any combination of education experience which would likely provide the necessary knowledge and abilities is qualifying.
right, but it also says that we're gonna prefer
Yeah.
the other.
We can soften the specific to the California public experience by just simply the way we arrange those words. Absolutely.
Okay, we got one minor change suggested. Any, besides that, any other comment? We're looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. All those, any further comment, any public comment on this item?
Yeah, just a clarification again, because I have a very slow mind.
Ken, can you please come to the microphone? Thank you.
Were these questions he was asking about, with those positions that have a border around them, those are positions that are to be filled? Is that my understanding?
No, it's just the option, I think.
I don't have reference to the one with the border or not border, so I'm not sure what you're being asked.
It's the district engineer, water resource program manager, HR tech, community, customer relations manager. Those positions are currently not filled.
Yeah, there's about 7 of them that have a box around them.
The 4 that she's just pointed out are the 4 that are not filled.
Those are existing positions that are not filled. And then
The ones that are just grayed without the border around them,
That's-
currently are there and filled.
Those are to designate, excuse me, those are to designate.
exempt. They're not part of the SEIU bargaining agreement. These are exempted from the SEIU bargaining agreement. So if they're shaded, at least the ones that I see here, what's in the presentation, those shaded are non-represented or exempt positions.
And there's a legend at the bottom corner of that page stating that what the shade means.
Okay, that part makes some sense, okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Public comment closed on that item. We've got a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
It's opposed. It's 5-0 on the vote. Okay, item 6, committee and joint power authorities reports, another regional organization of note. Any committee or joint powers, anyone?
We do have a
Anyone-
finance committee meeting scheduled for next Tuesday.
Can we change the time on that?
That's why I'm asking, because we have a new committee member.
Yeah.
What is your preference?
I'm supposed to be at a bureau meeting at 1 o'clock in Sacramento, so as early in the morning as you guys come to work would be the best for me. 8 or 9.
I think Director Rathman and President Rathman.
Yeah, mornings will not work for me. We could change it to another day, but yeah, if we're going to change, I'd like to change it to an hour later or a half hour later in the day to accommodate my work schedule.
Ma'am?
And so we may need to look at a different day
We can-
possibly.
Would it be appropriate that once this board meeting is
Yes.
adjourned, I can work with both President Rathman and Director Stunt to set up a time?
And that's more than appropriate to handle it outside the meeting. I just knew that there was likelihood of a conflict, and I want to make sure to get on the table quickly.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
thanks for bringing that up, Mitch. I was unaware of that. Any other discussion items need to be discussed on this?
We had
We have I have on my calendar here, Mona, that the Highway 4 Committee meeting is going to be on the 22nd. But now I'm questioning that. I'll verify that to make sure that you, WPA, and board and staff will be here for that. But that's the date I wrote down. I'll have to go back and look at my computer.
We can confirm that after the meeting.
This was a meeting being requested by Jack Lynch on UWPA board to discuss water issues with CCWD. You're going to have Larry be there in your place because you can't be there. Now that's what I wrote down. Now I'm questioning, because when I talked to you earlier this morning, you said you didn't have that, so now I got to question myself.
Larry may have coordinated directly, I don't know.
There's still some question from Mr. Lynch. We still haven't confirmed that. It was
Okay.
tentative, and I mentioned to you that I haven't heard anything from Mr. Lynch.
Okay, I will follow up on that to make sure that we get some kind of definitive answer, yes or no.
2:30. I've got a report on camera. You want to do that one, Bob?
No, good.
Okay. On the 18th, we had a camera meeting, that's the JPA with Amador, and we discussed BDCP issues and the Mokwise project. The reports seemed to take pretty much of the meeting. Nothing really came out other than the idea that they're looking for potential projects utilizing grant opportunities. So everybody has stuff they want to do, but the reality is, without a grant, they're not going to be able to do them. CPUD is really seems to be motivated. But other than that, there wasn't anything else that you were aware of. Mokwise seemed to come up, but that's long-term and it's not really doing a whole lot right now, so.
One of the exciting things was that there were a lot of people there.
We
Actually had a quorum and some new faces, so maybe we'll get some stuff done this year.
So that was Cameron. Then on the 10th, we had a MRA meeting, McCollum River Association, and there was a report from the Forest Service on the rim fire. And this was really well done. We also had a supervisor from Tuolumne County that attended, and he gave some insight. But Tim Tate with SPI was the one that would really, Scott was there also, brought it home. And for me, is with the mill situation, I know that everybody would like to get the usable logs out of the fire, but it sounds to me like the mill just cannot handle the sheer volume of material in there, and they're going to lose a huge percentage of burnt logs just by virtue of they can't cut it fast enough. So it's a sad situation, and SPI, they're going to be working around the clock for the next couple of years, but the reality is, without more mills, these kind of fires and occurrences that happen, we're not going to be able to do much salvage. We're limited just by the scope of the mills. So it was a real good presentation. New PG&E guy was there, and he was reporting. He wants to be more involved with the whole McCollum River watershed, and so he's highly motivated at this point, and it seems like he's going to be around for a while. So hopefully we're going to have a better working relationship with PG&E on the McCollum. I'm a little optimistic on that one. And that's it.
Good job. I'm going to report out on the Parks and Rec, Calaveras County Parks and Rec. We did have a meeting, Mitch and I met with Foothill Park and Rec representatives to discuss the idea of using CCWD property in the Valley Springs area, further research and they're further researching the ideas based on some information that Mitch was able to provide. Larry Diamond was also very instrumental providing a lot of good information to them. Ended up having a 3 or 4 hour meeting, and they're moving forward with with their part of the project. And it probably will be on our agenda at some point this year to discuss that. Any other committee-related items from the board? Okay, let's move on to item number 7, legislative update.
Yes, sir. I provided a summary. The legislative session, of course, is just getting going. The governor has new budget out. I provided you a summary of all the watch list from your California State legislative team, and ultimately, most of these, in fact, all these are bills that are going to be kicked around again from the previous session, and we are watching that and try to keep this coming to you on about a quarterly basis, so you just see either a slow progression or slow death of some of these this year, because this will be the second year for most of these.
Thank you. Anyone want to piggyback, anyone from the legislative committee, have anything to add?
Just very briefly, State Ledge met last week, that is Aqua State Ledge, and they're gearing up for the bond, and, once again, there are a lot of different proposals on the table. Aqua's still hanging firm on the $11.14 billion, but their real concern is that there will not be sufficient amount of water proposed in the upcoming bond for surface storage, and that's they're willing to throw themselves on the store for that on their sword for that $3 billion. Aqua submitted a new proposal on as a counter to the $11.14 billion, but it still exceeds $8 billion. It's about 8.2 billion. HR member Rendon has a proposal out there that's a little stronger on the storage aspect, but the one positive thing I think from Rendon's proposal is that it's much more solicitous to our headwaters issues and things like that, and I think to be more money provided for the important restorations and protections that will be needed for headwaters. And of course, Senator Wilkes' bill is the one that's at the moment seems to be favored, and that's all, of course, you would expect to be Delta-centric. So we'll just have to see where it's going to play out. It's going to be an interesting year because not only are we going to be faced with some issues like BDCP and the bond, but a lot of these people are going to be up for re-election, so they're going to be lining up to see where their constituents will be supportive. So stay tuned.
The inside bettors right now would say that you will not see a water bond put onto the fall election. It's going to be too large a dollar item and too controversial to pick up into an election year.
They need a 2/3 vote to change that, correct? In other words, it's being submitted as
Actually, they can modify it without, it doesn't need a 2/3 vote to postpone it.
Okay.
It can be postponed because it's just going to be an amendment.
How do you, maybe this is a discussion to take place elsewhere, but I'd just be curious to know how that's going to dovetail, that is the bond proposal, with the BDCP and what's his name, Brown's proposal for the tunnels. Because it seems to me that they're integral, but maybe not.
Well, they're obviously integrated and integral to each other. The flip side is when you can walk across the American River again, and you're trying to tell people in the state that there's going to be water to move through $25 billion conveyance project, it's a little difficult. So this is the illustrative example of a year where tunnels or no tunnels, there simply is no water. And so ultimately, it makes it very difficult for the Southern California municipal water suppliers to get behind a proposal that's not going to bring additional water to the ratepayer.
Just as an aside, I've been talking about storage and storage portfolio as the route to go, and one of the things that I've suggested is that we look at dredging, and it's not just me, a lot of other people have said that. I know the Sierra Fund has been working with NID, Nevada Irrigation District, to get some dredging Their interest, of course, is to remove the pollutants such as mercury from the water, but the additional benefit would have been to increase storage by getting rid of siltation. Guess what happened? They got a bulldozer out there, and frogs started popping up all over the place. And so that put everything on hold. So dredging may not be a viable option in the immediate near future. So I'm laughing because it's a lot easier to laugh than it is to cry, but it's kind of a funny situation. So I thought I'd share that with you guys.
Okay, from legislative update, go to Bay Delta issues.
I think we just covered that too.
Okay. Anyone else comment on big tunnels? Okay, reports. Mitch, anything further on a general manager report?
Yes, sir, I do. First of all, I left you a copy of a recent article by an economist, Dr. Michaels, on the Central Valley's permanent poverty. I think it's kind of an interesting way to look at some of the economic models that may be tested in the not-too-distant future. Also, I wanted to report out on an initiative that's happening in the Sacramento area, Sacramento Suburban Water District and San Juan Water District, two of the largest water purveyors in the Sacramento area, each one with a couple, there's 70,000 connections in Sac Suburban, and San Juan is a wholesaler and retailer to about 180,000 folks. So, but they're looking at merging. And one of the primary drivers in merging is their water rights strategy. So again, as we start to see water rights and the accessibility to water in the future, unique strategies and partnerships are being put together. So that is going on, and you'll probably hear more about that as we talk about in Aqua in the future. Did want to go through our capital renovation and replacement fund report just a little bit so we keep continuity. Ultimately, on the screen, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, this lags by a month. So you'll see where our revenues are for our water. So the revenues are starting to come in.
Yes.
And if there's no questions on that, we'll go to wastewater. Our wastewater revenues are also coming in, and we're starting to spend some money as we look at these projects.
May I have a footnote to this?
Absolutely.
If you look at the top line under wastewater rate revenues that's being billed, there's another line at other revenues. The Millwoods project that was recently completed used $28,000 in the bill's O&M budget. And I just wanted to identify that was paid for money that was already approved in the 13-14 budget. So that's what that $28,000 is for. And the expenses are as of December 31st, so we're a little bit behind. And remember, billings tend to be a few weeks behind. Director Dean.
Was that 28,000 a reimbursement, or is it?
No. It's just that the Millwoods project was a project that we identified in our initial capital R&R program.
Right, yeah.
The funding for that project, at least the $28,000 of that portion of that project, came out to be about $33,000. That was in the district's O&M budget. It is not being funded by the increase in rates.
Oh, I understand what you're saying, okay.
That's what I wanted to do. This is generalized.
And we have just completed the first work at Lift Station 9. It is done, although the asphalt work will have to wait till the spring. And we are working on Lift Station 10 and got the hole dug and slipping them.
Is there too much snow?
You know? This is in fact the topic of the day. Is it drought yet? I guess it's not a drought.
Is this the Copperopolis?
Well, that's the wet part.
Unfortunately, that's Arnold. It is a very, very dry year. Currently, the water supplies look really, really limited. The red lines, of course, are the average or the historical average. And I always like to remind people in California, there's nothing average, it's just it's a numerical calculation. Wide swings in California are normal, and so ultimately, looking at average is an important analytical tool, but as they say, we normally get our weather in 3 or 4 major storms, so it's not too late yet, so hopefully. The one thing that jumps off at you is you see the two reservoirs on the southern, on the end, Pyramid and Castaic. Those are up to their normal. Those are the primary water supplies, of course, that feed the metropolitan water of Southern California from their state water project water. So we've managed to keep those topped off, which is probably a good thing. Although if you listen to the recent press releases from Southern California, they have 2 years of supply, and they are not contemplating any kind of water restrictions during this next year. Sir?
Do we have access to a map that shows the reservoir levels in non-federal projects? I'd love to see you showed down there with Castaic and Pyramid, those are federal, but they're full. I'd like to see where Diamond Valley is, for instance.
Diamond Valley is, of course, very, very close to full.
Yeah, and of course, we've got Maloney's Comanche.
Yeah, well, the state water project is Oroville, so it's a mix here. These are the ones that DWR monitors. I can get, Diamond Valley is a Met facility. It's about 1 million acre-feet, nearly the size of Folsom, or about the same size as Folsom. It can be filled from either state water project or Colorado River water. And it's been used as a carryover for state water project water from 2 years ago.
Yeah, well, I guess where I'm leading with this whole thing is that some of the southern water purveyors are crying poor mouth when they're sitting there with full reservoirs, and we're filling them up with water that might be allocated for our regions, but we're making sure they have it, and in the process, we don't. And Folsom Lake is a good example of that. So, it would seem to be a good example of that. I don't want to presume anything, but I'm a little bit concerned that we're not getting the full picture here.
As always, I would urge caution as we take a look at gross data and make refined conclusions. But yes, I can provide that information to you. We are in fact in a drought, and it's going to be an extended drought. The next 3 months are not going to provide meaningful precipitation, at least as NOAA currently projects. Now, of course, we could get an atmospheric river directly over the top of us, and that would change overnight. We've seen it happen before, but there isn't an expectation that it's going to happen. So we're going to have to start talking about what we would like to do in terms of a drought response plan, what we might have to lay out in public information, and then ultimately what we want to do for future rate structure that might reflect the ability to be more agile in a drought situation. Well, that's a long-term goal.
Just for the board's knowledge, we never talk about minimum pool or anything until we get down there. It'd be interesting to refresh the board with a memo regarding, my concern is Hogan. I think that's really the only place we have any significant worries. Probably won't this year, probably won't next year, but it'd be interesting to get a refresher course in, because as I understand it, we own the minimum pool, so to speak. And so it'd be nice to have that information in case we're questioned about what, the what ifs.
Absolutely. I think it'd be a good presentation for everybody's usage. I'm smiling only because when I think of what's left at the bottom of the cup, sometimes you might not want it.
We were
Better than the top of the cup.
We were at the minimum pool back in the mid-90s, I believe,
Early 90s.
Early.
That's correct.
So where is Hogan right now? Do you know offhand?
It's about 15 miles over here.
I don't see it. I don't see any water. Is there any water left in it?
Yes, sir. The old dam is well crested, though.
All right, anything else, Mitch?
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Lynn Gentry?
No, thank you.
Jeffrey Meyer? Nothing. Bill Purley isn't here. So let's go on to item 10, board reports. Information, future agenda items. Start with Director Davidson.
My only report has to do with the upcoming County Chamber of Commerce installation dinner. It's Wednesday the 29th at Camps. I encourage all the board members to come and any staff member that would like. Our presentation, Bob's been helping me trying to solidify the speakers, but we want to have a presentation regarding lessons from the river fire. As we all know, we have identical conditions in Calaveras County, with the only difference is we probably have several thousand more homes in an area that could burn, and so the chamber wants to. We're going to hear from somebody from the Forest Service. I've asked Mitch to do a recap of what the things that we're looking into, some of the stuff that may come out of the water forum and that sort of thing. And so I think it'll be an interesting presentation about the economic environmental lessons that we've learned from the Rim Fire. So I hope you will all attend. It is a reimbursable event. Or it should be. That's it.
Director Stump?
Let's see, on the 18th of December, we had a Mountain County Water Resources Association presentation in Tuolumne County that was attended by the supervisors, by TUD and Twain Hart Water Agency. And the reason for the meeting was to make them more aware of regional issues. They're pretty clear on what's happening in Tuolumne County, but they're a little too focused on right at home, and they wanted to know more about what's taking place regionally and in Sacramento. They recognized that I was impressed that they were looking across the river to Calaveras to show the leadership for this area. They seem to be thinking in terms of some type of a JPA as far as something like camera with Calaveras, but their hands are full right now, so I don't know if that's actually going to take place. Then on the 7th of January, I had a Mountain County Water Resources Association board meeting. We had elections, myself and one other, Norm Crizzle, were elected to the board. We elected officers, and they elected me as president of Mountain Counties.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We've sent out the final draft of our Headwaters Policy Principle. We've given it to all of our executive members to review and comment on within 2 months before we adopt them. I'm real happy with it. Bob was involved with the writing of the principles, and I think that we've got something that we can all be real proud of in the hills. It's directly related to the mountains, not to anywhere else, but to the Sierra. We're having little growing pains with North State Water Alliance. We're part of the alliance, we're one of the founding members, but they tend to think of the Mountain County still as the poor stepchild. And so when they do their PR, and they tend to leave the idea that the water comes from the mountains out of it. So we're having a hard time changing those concepts, but we keep after that. And then on the 13th, I attended a GABA meeting. This is the Greater Arnold Business Association, and they're going through some changes. They've got new board members. I think they have 4 new directors, but you can tell there's a shift. They're going to take them a little bit to get up to speed, but they're trying real hard. They're real focused on trying to do something with the vacant homes and shops and offices along Highway 4 because they look so bad. So they're working on that. That seems to be their focus point. And that's it.
Thank you. Director Dean?
Yeah, I mentioned the state ledge when we were talking about legislation. That's gearing up, and they'll be meeting on pretty much a 3-week basis between now through midsummer. There's an EDC meeting, that's the Economic Development Committee meeting this afternoon at 2 over at one of the classrooms at the hospital. We're reconvening a drafting committee for Aqua's Headwaters Policy Principles, and that's going to start on the 21st of this month. They'll be meeting at the Aqua headquarters in Sacramento, and we're entertaining getting anybody involved who wants to be involved in the writing process, which essentially is creating a framing document for the policy principles that Aqua created last year. And Aqua's Region 3 board met on the 10th at the El Dorado Water Agency, forming a work plan for the next 2 years, and some interesting stuff. We've got some good people, and that's where I found out about the frogs with NID's reservoir. But anyhow, that being said, that's just about all I have to report, except that, you know, lots of stuff coming down the road.
Director Dooley.
Just a couple of things. This Highway 4 Corridor Committee is being driven, I believe, by the fear by UWPA board and staff that they may be looking at their driest year scenario, which I never thought would ever come, but this is just really, if we don't have any rain, I think they're going to be in serious trouble. And part of the problem that they see, which is part of the problem of the plan, is that if they end up with the driest year allotment for next year's delivery, and next year they have a wet year, it's kind of opposite scenario, having a wet year and having minimum deliveries. And I don't know where that's going to go. I have a question for Mitch. Where is the San Juan District headquarters?
San Juan is